But if you want to know where the Word of God stands, and believe it wants to use your feet and hands, it's time to take your faith out of the seats and into the streets, and come along with me. If you only look, then you will see on WCN-TV.
Hello and welcome again to another episode of WCN-TV. I'm Rob Pugh, your host, and I'm the publisher of Wisconsin Christian News, a nationally distributed Christian newspaper, and it's something in there for everyone, not just for Wisconsin. You can check us out at wisconsinchristiannews.com. Our special guest today is Mike Heath of Helping Hands Ministries. You can learn more about Mike at his website, michaelheath.org. Mike is a former leader of Maine's oldest and most well-known Christian political ministry. During his time with the Christian Civic League of Maine, he was known as a fearless leader, and the ministry stood resolute against sodomy and the normalizing of the LGBTQP+ agenda. He led the organization for 2 decades, achieving remarkable electoral victories in that state. In fact, they were so successful that Soros and company had to invest millions of dollars and years of labor to overcome their courageous advocacy for the moral and cultural truths of Christianity. We have a lot to go through today, so I'm going to bring Mike right in. How you doing, Mike? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Rob.
Good to see you.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sound good.
Thanks for your work with Wisconsin Christian News. This is the first time I've been on your show, first time you've interviewed me. I guess you've published some of my columns in your newspaper, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, you actually guest hosted one time for me when I was busy, right. So we appreciate that. You talked to Sam Rohr.
I remember that. That was a good time.
Yeah. So, well, why don't we start by telling folks a little bit about who Mike Heath is and give us your background, maybe if you'd be willing to share your testimony with us.
Sure. I was born in Ohio, but left there very soon after I was born, was raised in Maryland as a United Methodist, deepened my commitment to Christ in the Pentecostal sort of flavor of Protestantism and evangelicalism, achieved a college degree from Roberts Wesleyan College and Bachelor of Arts degree in philosophy. I'll be really quick about this. I know how boring these kind of things can be. And I ended up at a place called Bethany Acres for 4 years, which I led during my late 20s. And it was a residential care facility. We took care of mentally challenged folks and drug-addicted people in Jesus' name, in a residential setting, and that was a great challenge to Polly and me. We had 3 sons while we were there, and they're all raised and gone now. We got 6 grandchildren. Went from there to the Christian Civic League of Maine. I had developed an interest in politics from reading and reading. We didn't have the internet back then. But through church and through books, radio, I exposed myself to the thinking of Francis Schaeffer, and so I developed an interest in politics and an appreciation for the role that government and politics plays in our everyday lives, and felt like if I really wanted to apply my Christian faith in a meaningful way, this was one possible avenue, one possible outlet for my faith. So I ended up at the Christian Civic League of Maine, and I was there 20 years. I started as the administrative assistant. I eventually became the executive director. And the thing I became known for during those 20 years, Rob, was standing publicly and defending Christianity's view on homosexuality. The reason that that happened is because Maine was early to the LGBTQ debate, early in terms of the United States of America. And so we were forced, and the Christian Civic League of Maine is over a century old. So at that time it was near closing, it was 90 years old at that time. So it was a ministry that had a great deal of responsibility to the public, and we felt, the board felt, and I felt a duty to be very clear on the issue of homosexuality. And the reason we felt that way, Rob, is because as we surveyed the scene there in Maine. Now, it's interesting. I'm sorry to bounce around here, but I think your listeners will find this interesting. The Christian Civic League of Maine was founded in 1897, and at that time, the big issue in Maine and in New England was the passage of rum from Bermuda and from the Caribbean islands through Maine into the Maritimes of Canada, so up into New Brunswick and Quebec. And the rum would make its way from our coastline through Maine, through the farms of Maine, and up into Quebec. And what happened with the rum on the way is a lot of it found its way into the bellies of farmers and people who were in Maine at the time, and there was a lot of drunkenness in the state in the late 19th century. So as pushback to the drunkenness, Maine became the first state to pass prohibition. That was in the 1850s. And we went on, in terms of our politics, to debate vigorously how to push back against against drunkenness. Of course, prohibition, the prohibition of the sale, distribution, and consumption of alcohol, total prohibition in Maine, starting in the mid-19th century, continuing on through the the 32nd Amendment. It became a federal issue, of course, and there was a prohibition law that lasted until the 1930s. So the Christian Civic League was founded in that milieu, right, and that dealing with that sort of a moral reality and controversy within politics. And we decided, under my leadership, that the Christian Civic League of Maine's duty had shifted from resisting the effects of gambling and drunkenness in the society, broadly defined, and to the effects of sexual immorality. And we determined that there were two issues that were of extreme, great significance politically, and that was abortion, and the new issue that was emerging was homosexuality. Now,
can I just break in here and just ask what years were we talking about here? What years were you actually there?
So I was there as the executive director from 1994 to 2009, and I was at the Christian Civic League from 1988 until 2009. So okay. It was in the late 80s that we were forced to consider reacting to the proposal that homosexuality, or sodomy, as I like to call it, is a moral good, and that it ought to be recognized in law as a good thing. And they used to argue that it's a neutral thing for adults, but of course they don't argue that anymore. They argue that it's a moral good and that Christianity is a moral evil. I mean, it's really gone. We've fallen so far, so fast. It's absolutely stunning and amazing. Yeah, but when we started resisting in Maine, when we started resisting it at the Christian Civic League of Maine, we had decided that the sexual revolution had replaced gambling and drunkenness as the greatest threat to civilization. And so we decided to take on sexuality. Broadly speaking, and then as we fine-tuned and sort of reasoned our way to how best to marshal and focus the resources of the ministry, we decided that abortion was being advanced. The response to abortion was being advanced in Maine by the Roman Catholic Church, and with resources that we could never bring to the table because our base was much smaller than the Roman Catholic Church's base, and the Roman Catholic Church in Maine was very pro-life. I wish they'd been more ferociously pro-life, and I wish they were today, but it is what it is. And they, in terms of resources, and politics, Rob, as you know, is often a lot of times about what's pragmatic. What can you get done? What can you do? What do you have for resources, and what can you do with the resources you've got? And so we determined that we needed to focus our guns, our political guns, on the issue of sexual orientation or homosexuality. And we needed to offer to the public of Maine a reasoned, loving, appropriate, practical response to the idea that sexual orientation is a benign idea that offers no threat to the idea of the family and to marriage and to human sexuality. And we needed to offer a Christian response to that. And so that was my job as leader of the Christian Civic League. I did that. We ended up on the ballot a number of times. Because the Christian Civic League of Maine, and I think so proud of their decision to do this, they decided that if we had adopted a lobbying strategy, in other words, an inside game strategy, going inside the State House and trying to persuade a majority of the 186 legislators to agree with us, we determined early on that we would lose, because that inside baseball lobbying game is a very difficult game to win unless you've got millions of dollars, even in a small, poor state like Maine. And we just didn't have that kind of money. So we decided that with our base, we could take the issue to the ballot using the referendum. And so we waged a populist campaign against all things LGBTQ, and we won. We won in 98, we won in 2001, I think it was, and then we won again. And we lost, Rob, because Focus on the Family came in with a campaign called Love One Out, which changed the complexion of the debate from one of the moral law, defending the moral law, Christianity's historic, the development of the law in the West that goes back 2,000 years, but especially in the last 1,000 years, after Aquinas and the proposition of the natural law, and then the development of the idea of the natural law up through the Middle Ages, and then. So instead of defending that, instead of making that the ground upon which we were going to take our stand, we shifted over to psychology, and we shifted over to counseling, and we adopted the message of, oh, here's a bunch of people who used to be that way, and they're going to tell us how we can be good Christians in relationship to them. And none of that has anything to do with politics. None of that has anything to do with the law. It's fine for counseling. It's fine for helping people overcome sin, but that wasn't how we were winning, and it's not how we're going to win going forward either, Rob, in my opinion. I've been doing all the talking here.
So did you actually, was Maine one of the states that passed a constitutional amendment for marriage? Because I know we did that here, and it was not an easy thing to accomplish, and of course that was all wiped out in 2015. But
yeah, we did not end up passing. Our fight at that point had the whole marriage thing came down and went against us in relationship to what the Christian Civic League had done in the 90s and the early aughts, and we never got to have a big public fight over whether or not to amend the Constitution. It was discussed and all of that, but by the time we started to discuss it, the ball had moved down the field. And so they ended up passing marriage by doing it on a referendum. And our side was so weakened by Soros and company's efforts to defeat us at the ballot, as opposed to using judges or lobbying. See, what the Civic League forced the left to do, the LGBTQ left to do, was to figure out how to win a populist campaign, how to win by getting a majority of the people of a jurisdiction to vote for their position. And we forced them over years to develop a strategy, to develop tactics that would enable them to do that. And so they did that in Maine, and now they've rolled that out all over the world, what they learned in Maine. So to answer your question, the whole marriage thing got lost in that, and it never ended up being a huge debate in Maine. Our debate was over a discrimination, whether or not people in Maine should have the right to discriminate against people on the basis of their sexual orientation. And by the time we finished that debate, everybody was exhausted. And so the marriage thing sort of just fell into their camp because they had defeated us on that other other argument.
Wow. So it was actually bringing in kind of, I guess, a false gospel message, the love gospel.
There are a bunch of lies. Oh, you mean like focus on the family?
Yeah. That kind of
They brought in this this hyper Freudian idea, counseling based. And again, I'm not trying to say that if you're struggling with sin sexually, you can't go to a counselor, your pastor, or whoever, and receive some help at an individual level or as a small group, as a family, by exposing yourself to these concepts, these psychological and psychiatric ideas and concepts. That sometimes those things can be helpful at that level. But what it ended up doing to our political campaign is it ended up distracting it from the simple idea that in order for civilization to thrive and to even develop, you have to have strong families, you have to have strong marriages, and you have to have strong laws that make clear what's right and wrong when it comes to human sexuality. I always kept the debate there. That's where I kept. I never allowed the debate to go to the counseling, and they were always challenging me in the 90s, Rob, to do that. They being pastors, everybody, the media, the politicians, they were always challenging me, and I always fell back on this simple idea that I was the executive director of the Christian Civic League of Maine. What did that mean? That meant that I had a duty as the spokesman for the Christian Civic League of Maine to explain to the public what Christianity teaches about human sexuality, marriage, homosexuality, sodomy in particular, and that for me was always less. Well, it's not that it was for me. It's because I wasn't the head of the Christian Psychological Association of Maine, or the Christian Legal Association of Maine, or the Christian Psychiatric Association of Maine, or the Christian Sociological Association of Maine. I was the head of the Christian Civic League of Maine, Civic. So I always concentrated on the law, on the moral law, and why Christian ideas about what's right and wrong when it comes to the law were the best ones for securing Maine and for pointing families and couples toward a successful life with their children and their grandchildren. That's where I kept my argument. And we always won. We won, Rob, multiple times. I think today we could win, because I think a lot of people in the West, I think a lot of people in the world know that that's true. They feel it, they sense it, because God put it in us. And it's not to say.
It really is a super minority of people that are actually involved in the lifestyle, although they are doing tremendous amount of recruiting right now, and have been since the Obama years. It really ramped up, but we're still talking, what, 3%?
Yeah, it's a small number, but
the thing is, they have so many allies, and it's all emotion based.
Yes, and it all fits the narrative of the left right now, which is to create as much chaos as they can so that they can expand their power base. The left feels threatened by Trump and by the right, and the left is all in, and has been for my whole lifetime, all in on politics as if it were a religion. They make no separation between religion and politics. The left has merged those two things together. The right has not merged those two things together. The right, and you see that in Trump's narrative, the right has kept religion as religion, Christianity is Christianity, Islam is Islam, Buddhism is Buddhism, whatever. Religion is religion, and government is government. The left has mixed it all together. The left it's more religious than it is political. And
Well,
that's
I mean,
why,
I think their ideology is the religion. They basically
that's right.
voted to kick God out of their party platform.
That's right.
Um,
That's
so
right.
what's left for them is their political ideology.
Right. And because they act as if it's a religion, it's very potent, it's very powerful. And they are about securing the power they have and gaining enough power to force their agenda on everybody on the planet. I mean, it's now clear, right, Rob? 2020, what is this about? We are off the rails into a political narrative that is the most fake narrative, the most threatening, ridiculous thing that humanity has ever faced. And we're here because the left just cannot risk having Donald Trump be president for 4 more years. And so they're burning down the world in the sense that they've made this virus into, rather than respond to the virus in a scientifically reasonable way, they've blown it up because of their fear of losing power into this thing that forces everybody on the planet to wear masks. I mean, we could go on. And
Yeah, and I do want to get into that, but let me just kind of pick your brain here a little bit about um, why do you think they have so much power as far as the LGBT agenda? I mean, they've got every corporation. I mean, not every, obviously, but 99% of the corporations are on board and funding this thing, and it's become this gigantic monster that's impossible to fight against. So
they are proxy warriors for forces that wish to redefine, that are intent on redefining or defining anew what is right and what is wrong. And
yeah, I just don't understand some of the major corporations that are supporting this. And I mean, we've been to several pride parades, and they have every company that you can think of represented there and pumping money into this. And obviously, they're catering to 3% of the population and alienating 97% of the population. Fiscally, what's going on here? How are they able to achieve that?
well,
And why is our side doing
Yep.
almost nothing to
Well,
push
they
back?
wouldn't be doing it if it hurt their bottom line, because these are businesses. These corporations are there to make money, and they do it because it doesn't hurt their bottom line. I don't think it helps their bottom line all that much, other than in the sense that they create a partnership with homosexuality and the left wing that gains them money. But I think that if they were more traditional minded in their business practices, that they would actually do better. I think that's true even today. But there's this false economy that's been built up over our lifetimes, which is based on left-wing ideas being the popular ideas, being the public ideas, being the ideas that we are forced to discuss. Even, like, for example, me in the 1990s and the aughts, when I was arguing in Maine against sodomy, I was not allowed to use the word sodomy. I was forced to use the other word, sexual orientation, the other S word, I call it, sexual orientation, because left-wing ideas and left-wing definitions of words are that's how we're forced to think, that's how we're forced to talk. And it's been that way our whole lifetimes, Rob. So now we're at the point where, in order to just make a buck, in order to sell a product, in order to keep things normal, you you think and you talk in left-wing categories, left-wing terms. And we've been able to eke out some victories, like I did in Maine, by sort of being a body snatcher. And that's what I did with the phrase sexual orientation. I stole it from them, and I was able to redefine it enough so that we could eke out a few political victories. But the whole time that I was doing that, they were spending immense amounts of money, the left, I mean, the satanic left, on taking words like gay and just driving it home that gay means, sodomy. Gay means having homosexual sex, which it didn't mean, and it shouldn't mean today. But they kept redefining words. They kept embodying institutions. They took over institutions, and now that's where we are. In order to make a dollar, in order to survive in the workplace, you have to be silent about your Christian convictions and values and about the truth from a Christian perspective, and you have to adopt an attitude toward, and you have to adopt the definition of words that is acceptable in the workplace and acceptable to the left, not to the right. Now, this is why Donald Trump is so interesting, because he absolutely, not only does he refuse to do that, but he refuses to do it in such a way that he weaponizes it. And that's the brilliance of his use of Twitter. I saw it immediately in 2016, early on, when he tweeted out the insult of Jeb Bush, the pet name of Jeb Bush. Having been in politics my whole life, I realized I know what offense looks like using the English language, using words. Politics is war without bullets, right? Politics is war with words. And if politics fails, you get bullets. And that's what's happening now. We're transitioning from a political controversy, a political phase in this revolution, and we're moving to bullets. We're moving to bloodletting. We're moving to violence. That's the way it always happens. So politics is failing. War is breaking out. So that's.
So you've been gone. You've been gone from there for what, 11 years now? What have they? What are they mainly focusing on now at the Christian Civic League of Maine? And what have you been doing since?
Yeah, they're very proud that they got rid of me. They did not fire me. I resigned. Probably shouldn't have, but I did. And I resigned because I just became so frustrated with the pastors and with the controversies that were emerging and becoming very pointed and forceful all around me as the leader of the Christian Civic League. And it was just becoming supremely uncomfortable. I felt like I was hurting the institution instead of helping it. And so I resigned. And the reason that happened, Rob, is one of the things that I've had to struggle with from the beginning of my career as a Christian who believed that politics, that we have a duty as Christians to be political, is to provide an answer to the accusation that my tone and style isn't perfect or is mean or is, and it's always tone and style. It's very often, it's very seldom that I would get into debates on the substance of an issue. The attacks would always come from pastors or from anyone else, the media, against my tone and style. I'm just too mean and too vicious. And, I'm wearing a colorful shirt right now that says I'm fed up, and I'm sure we're going to get into that before the hour is up. But you see, this has a kind of accusatory tone to it. It has an offensive tone, not offensive. It's not offensive. It's not meant to be offensive, but offensive. It's on the offense. It's in your face. It's saying something true. And this is the approach that I took at the Christian Civic League of Maine, wearing a suit, blow drying my hair, and doing everything I could to fit within the focus on the family paradigm that makes all of the 30-something moms happy who are Christians. Keep them happy and keep them listening by being nice and by being pleasant and by not being too much of a man. You can't have too much testosterone nowadays if you're a Christian, because then you're an aggressive person who's not a Christian. You're not loving. You're
Yeah,
judgmental. This
yeah.
this
I know.
this has been my life from day one of assuming responsibility as executive director of the Christian Civic League of Maine in 1994. That's been where the debate has been the whole time. And at first I was confused by it, confused, then bemused, and then in recent years I've just become so angry about it that you can't imagine how it's just. And I've grown closer to men like mutual friend of ours, Coach Dave Daubenmire, who has brought who simply can't. It isn't even. It doesn't even begin to be a possibility that he's going to leave any testosterone behind. I mean,
Right.
he's a football coach, for goodness sakes. So he's 100% testosterone, and I can't get enough of it. I love the way that he articulates his Christian faith, and this is what's so lacking in the expression, the defense of the presentation of Christianity in America is.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And unfortunately,
Yeah, it's not, and when I say offense, not to be offensive, it's not to be
right.
offensive. It's to say, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what the Bible teaches. This is what Christianity is about. What do you believe? Where do you come from? Assert your values. Assert your convictions. I mean, I think that's what makes America brilliant, is we developed that First Amendment, which created 300, 400 years now of free speech that we were all celebrating up until this year, really. I mean, I was celebrating it up until this year. Now I'm wondering whether it can work anymore, because you've got these tech giants that are American companies, and they are so obviously censoring Christian speech. They're obviously saying to one particular group of people, a group of people that have a set of beliefs, that you are not allowed to speak anymore, and we will just cancel you, turn you off, censor you. You're done.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
anything that doesn't fit the official narrative of the left. So,
exactly.
But that's in everything. That's social media. That's mainstream news media. That's Hollywood. I mean, for goodness sake, we were watching something on HGTV last night. I think it was Hoarders, and they had to do an episode on the homosexual hoarder, because you've got to get that in every square inch of the culture. I mean,
in the meantime,
I understand why we rarely turn the television on anymore. So
yeah, I don't even have it. I don't even have one to watch, and I'm glad for it.
Well, Mike, we gotta take a quick break here, and but we'll do it quick, and we'll be right back. If Jared's ready.
Have you been looking for a trusted long-term storable food company? We have a solution for you. Simply Clean Foods is dedicated to providing the best quality food you can buy next to fresh from a farmer's market. Our line of resealable fruits, vegetables, and meats are suitable for everyday use, and you won't have to worry about throwing away valuable groceries ever again. Our food is completely GMO-free, and our stringent quality controls, plus testing for heavy metals, makes us unique in the storable foods market. Simply Clean Foods' primary focus is to bring clean food to people all around the world and change the way we look at freeze-dried food in our daily cooking. When you purchase from simplycleanfoods.net, not only will you be receiving high-quality food, but you will also be supporting veterans in need across the country and those who are affected by natural disasters. Right now, Amazon Prime members will receive fast 2-day shipping. Go to simplycleanfoods.net. That's simplycleanfoods.net. But do it today.
At the Mcarthur firm, it all starts with family. We are here to serve you and your family, online or in person. Call today for a free consultation. The Mcarthur firm, your law firm for life.
Observe the bees. I've been watching the honeybees working on a purple flowered bush off the front porch this summer. They're getting after it, for they be busy bees, and they have to be, because their lifespan in the summertime is about 5 to 6 weeks. Now, a lot of folks don't care for bees due to a pointy end on them that carries a sting. Ouch! Ooh. But the other end of a honeybee is its true business end, for it's for making sweet, good old bee spit. I love it. It's got lots of medicinal powers in it, plus it just tastes good on about everything. Honeybees live in a community known as a hive, and their entire lives are spent for the good of others, which reminds me of something Albert Einstein said: only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile, which should also buzz true for believers like you and me, because 1 John 3:16 and 17 says, this is how we've come to understand and experience love. Christ sacrificed his life for us. This is why we ought to live sacrificially for our fellow believers and not just be out for ourselves. So let me ask you, if you see some brother or sister in need and have the means to do something about it but turn a cold shoulder and do nothing, what happens to God's love? It disappears. And you made it disappear. This is Leighton Howerton encouraging you to be like the bees and make some honey by pollinating love along the way. And to support the ministry of WCN-TV, visit us at WisconsinChristianNews.com.
Welcome back. We're talking to Michael Heath from MichaelHeath.org and Helping Hands Ministries. Gone through a little bit of your history, Mike, and why don't you tell us what you're doing now? What is Helping Hands Ministries, and what do you have there at MichaelHeath.org?
Well, we created, my wife and I, Polly, who is a Christian musician, and she has a website, Rob, pollyheath.com, P-A-U-L-I-E, Heath.com. And she's produced 7 Christian albums. And we, after I resigned from the Christian Civic League of Maine, formed Helping Hands Ministries. And so I have continued to speak out on issues like abortion and sodomy, and go to the streets and support people like Coach Dave and others who maintain a offensive witness on these most important issues. And so I have a website, michaelheath.org, and there's closing in on 300 column length articles that I've written in the past year on that website. So if anything I've said piques your interest in my thinking or in what I've done or in what I think today about a lot of issues, you can go to michaelheath.org and all the columns are published there. Also, Rob, I've done a show like this. I did that through up until I went to work for FedEx earlier this year. And I may go back to doing that. It was a 30-minute show, live show, that had some guests, and there's some videos there at michaelheath.org that I encourage your viewers to check out.
Yes, and you were very helpful in helping us to promote our conference this past March. So
one of these days I'll make it to one.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention also that we're doing a huddle with Coach Dave Daubenmire in Mount Airy, North Carolina, which is where I live, Rob, Mount Airy, North Carolina. We're doing that on September 19th. So that's just over a month away. Would love to invite invite anybody else who could make it to Mount Airy. Mount Airy is known as Mayberry from the Andy Griffith Show, because Mount Airy is the hometown of Andy Griffith. And
that is 1 week after our event that we have September 11th and 12th. And why don't we click on that? We're doing we're busy guys, aren't we? We're doing an emergency preparedness and tactical training event, similar to what we did in Ohio last month. But there was so much interest up here that we decided to do one up here. We got a wonderful venue, and we do have a limit on the number of people that we can accept. Tickets are $59, and we are right now half full. Just since last Thursday, we're half full. So if you're planning
Rob,
to come to that,
can I say that I was at the Ohio. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're planning to come to that, register soon, because I would say in another week or so, we're going to be full and we're going to have to cut it off. So
let me say to your viewers that I was at the Ohio event, and it was so wonderful for my faith. I really needed it because of what we're going through with this nonsense, this COVID, BLM.
Well, the training was wonderful, but what we really needed was the fellowship
That's
and
right.
seeing friends that we hadn't seen since last year at that time, and it was really needed. So,
And it was great
but
to be there fellowshipping in Jesus' name under the cross that coach just assembled, erected there, 60 feet in the air, and with the guns booming all around us.
right, and nobody wearing masks.
That's
So,
right. Not one.
well, let me get into something else here because we're down to about 20 minutes or less. But I warned people that 2020 was going to be crazy, but I had no idea what we were in for. It's like the Twilight Zone out there. There's people walking around in masks in bright sunshine, 90-degree heat, economic shutdown, travel restrictions, churches closed, rioters burning things, mayors defunding police departments, historical monuments torn down. They're burning Bibles and flags. What's going on, Mike?
None of it's necessary, Rob. It's all being inspired and forced and pushed and funded by one side of politics. It's agenda driven. It's political. It's supremely anti-God, anti-religion. It's 100% 100 proof politics is what we're dealing with. Yes, there's a virus. Okay, yes, there's a virus. But why can't we get plain, simple answers to plain, simple questions?
As I wrote in a column and I did a radio message on it last week, yes, there's a virus, but there's a lot of viruses out there, and there's germs. There's even bad guys that'll kill you for $5 if they could. So
Christians are scared to death. What is the number? Close to 70% of Christians now and conservatives are telling pollsters that they are scared to death to share their opinion. At the same time, guys like Epstein and Ghislaine, whatever her name is, and all the corruption that every day is either hidden or played with on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, mainstream media. It's all just designed to keep us in this chaos and this sense of unrest and this sense of chaos. And why? And the mask, which actually isn't a mask, it's a veil, because a mask is something you put over your whole face, which presents a different face. That's a mask, right? Halloween mask,
right. Yep.
Masks that dances, that kind of thing. It's a veil. And veils are something that are temporary and transparent. You think of a veil, when we use a veil, is something that a bride wears at a wedding. And so it's only used for a short period of time, and it's always transparent in that particular case. But this veil, we use veils during times of transition. And this is a transition to what the left is calling the new normal, where we're all going to have to, in order to be safe, right? Safety is everything. In order to be safe, we're going to have to submit ourselves to 24/7 surveillance using, we're already doing that, by the way. These devices here are weapons, 24/7 surveillance. So the technocratic state is here. And the only question now is, how deep are we going to allow ourselves, humanity, how deep are we going to allow humanity to go in its relationship to, in the incorporation of technology, the technocratic state? So constant surveillance to guarantee safety, along with vaccines. So that's the future that we're being asked. Well, no, we're not even being asked, Rob, to accept.
No, they don't ask.
We're being forced.
We're being forced
upon us. And it's evil, Rob. It's pure, unadulterated evil. We don't even have to talk 666. We don't even have to talk Revelation or the Bible to be able to conclude that what we're facing here is a decision. And when I say we, I mean the whole world. We are making a decision right now about something that is absolute, horrible evil. It is so ugly and inhumane that Rob, it's going to fail. This is going to fail. This is so deeply wicked and satanic. There's no way this is going to, unless This is indeed the prelude to Christ's promised return for a second time. Maybe. I don't know the future. Who knows? I don't know the future. But if it isn't that, then I believe we're going to win, Rob. I think that truth, beauty, and goodness is going to prevail here. But I think we're going to have to go through some very deep suffering in order to get to the other side.
Well, you can always tell when something is purely evil when they have to force it on people. Cases in point: Obamacare, sodomite marriage, the mask. They have to force it. If it was such a great idea, if you were going to get this wonderful health care for the price of your monthly cell phone bill, people would flock to it. But no, they had to force it on us and penalize you if you didn't do it. They had to force us to celebrate sodomite marriage. If it was so wonderful, people would just normally do it, right? They have to force us to wear masks. If people were keeling over dead in the street and this was a serious virus, people would do that automatically. They'd stay home automatically, but no, they have to force it. So that's how I determine when something is purely evil, is when they force it.
Well,
and they are forcing it.
And forcing an idea which is so obviously insane, like putting the two words sodomy.
Yeah, but so many people don't think it is.
I know, and that's the takeaway. Sodomy, marriage, these are not ideas that go together at all. They're supreme opposites. They're actual opposites. The big lie. Talk about a big lie. That's a big lie. And it was one vote on the Supreme Court that overturned, what was it, 20 some or 30 some, I think it might have been close to 40 states that had amended their constitutions or passed laws defining marriage.
I think it was 37. We were one of them. So
yeah, it was a lot of states that had done that. And the one vote on the Supreme Court overturned that on my wedding anniversary, Rob, June 26th, I don't know which year it was, but 5 years ago. And my wife and I, with the exception of this year, because of COVID craziness, we each year on the anniversary, on our wedding anniversary, we would go to the Supreme Court and we would stand on the steps and pray, and we would hold an event. So almost, nobody came, nobody. It's amazing how Christianity and the pastors will do nothing to resist this agenda.
It's my greatest frustration, Mike.
They will do nothing. I mean, now we got the popular guy in California there who's taking a stand because he can't pass the offering plate to as many people every week as he needs to in order to pay for his building, probably. What's his name? You know his name. The big
John Mcarthur.
John Mcarthur, yeah.
And you dare not mention him in a negative tone because people worship him like he's Jesus himself. So,
well, I
have nothing against the guy. It's just that people worship him, and that bothers me.
Yeah, I just mentioned him. I mean, where is he on abortion? Where is he on sodomy marriage? Where has he been?
Well, just preach the gospel, Mike.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. How about preaching the gospel on sodomy?
Yeah, exactly. So,
and abortion, baby.
Well, before we run out of time, I need to ask you about your T-shirt.
Yeah.
And the situation that just took place recently.
Right. Interesting story. So my father died at 85 years old in February, and he had he was a cancer survivor, and his physical situation was deteriorating for years, but it really picked up speed last summer. And he died in February. And one of the things that he suggested to me was that I go to work for FedEx. Now, I had worked for FedEx as a last mile delivery guy a few different times in the last 3 or 4 years. My ministry, because I say things like I just said about John Mcarthur, has never gotten to the point where money's flowing in hand over fist. And so I've had to take blue collar jobs now and again. And in recent years, it's been with FedEx. delivering packages to people's homes. Never gotten any complaints, enjoyed the work, worked for 3 different contractors. So I went back just after my dad died and just before the plague hit. I could sense something something was coming. And so because my dad said that as he was dying, and also I could sense something was coming, and I had a feeling that I would want to become essential before essential was a thing. And so I got back in the truck and I became an essential worker. And of course the lockdown came, and I never even thought about the lockdown, Rob. I was working 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. There was no locking me down because we had to deliver all those Amazon packages that people were ordering.
Right.
And so I was working for FedEx and enjoying it, and went on vacation for a week and came back in early July. So I'm loading my truck, sorting my packages, and into my space walks this man I'd never met before. And he says, "Are you Michael Heath?" in a threatening sort of way. And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "I'm with security, come with me." That's all he said. And so he perp walked me, didn't tell me what it was about, across this huge terminal through 2 locked doors into his office. And he turned on a recorder and he said, "Do you agree that this recording is confidential?" And I said, "What are you talking? What is this about? Why are we here?" And he wouldn't tell me. He said, "Do you agree?" in a sort of threatening way. And so I felt I was too polite, Rob. I should have said no. But I kind of wanted to keep the job. It's sort of like, what do you do? So I said yes. And so he kept recording. To make a very long story short and to put a fine point on it, he declared that he was a good Christian, and he quoted from something on my blog where I had criticized homosexuality using strong words. And he suggested that these words were incendiary. And I stopped him and I said, "No, I tell you what's incendiary when it comes to the issue of sodomy. It's God raining down fire from heaven on the 5 plains of the city, 2 of which you may have heard of, Sodom and Gomorrah. That's incendiary." And so he, as an official representing FedEx, brought up religion and threatened my job. And he ended up finishing the interview. And I could say a lot more about it, but there we are again with what I said earlier. My whole life, it's been about tone and style, right? That's always the issue. It's not the issue itself, which is sodomy and whether or not that's evil and against God's law. No, it's my tone and style. It's the way I choose to speak, to use my free speech in a free country to say this is wrong. I didn't attack any individuals. There was no complaints about me with respect to delivering packages. It had nothing to do with employment. I was wearing the FedEx uniform in some videos, and later, and that really was what got to them, even though they put their logo in homosexual pride parades all over the country.
Absolutely. They've driven their trucks in the parades.
Yeah. But I was wearing a uniform, not really thinking about it. I never said that FedEx endorsed my views. I was just on my way to work. These jobs, they don't pay a whole lot, and you work long hours, and I'm usually pretty tired at the end of the day, and I start early. So I would just do it in my uniform, didn't think about it. I had never, as it turns out, Rob, I had never signed a policy statement saying that I couldn't wear the uniform. Learned that after the fact. So I really didn't know that I couldn't. Now, a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, you should have known you can't wear the uniform." Well, I didn't know. Okay. I didn't know. So anyway, a week goes by and I work a couple long days, and it's the end of the day, and the phone rings, and it's my contractor. And he says, "I got a call from the guy who runs the terminal. And he asked me what I thought of you." And my contractor who I worked for thought I was a great worker, whatever, and said he'd looked at the video, said he'd looked at the stuff online, didn't have any problem with it. And he said he wouldn't fire me. So my contractor who I worked for decided not to fire me. The terminal decided to forbid me, to disqualify me from wearing the FedEx uniform ever, in other words, forever, anywhere in the world. So not only did they fire me from that contractor, working for that contractor, but one of the options for me is to go back to Maine, where I'm from, and work for a contractor that can't do that. Can't work for FedEx anywhere on the planet because I'm a Christian. That's why. That's where we are. And that's what they said to me, Rob. I mean, they're trying to say it's because I was wearing the uniform, but we're getting the tape. I've got a lawyer, and we're going for the tape. We're going to get the tape, and on the tape, it's very clear that the corporation, discriminated against me on the basis of religion. Their argument's going to be, well, he was wearing a uniform. But my argument's going to be, you called me in, you said that you took issue with my Christian speech and my political speech. You violated my First Amendment rights. You provided no accommodation, because you know what I did, Rob, immediately when I realized I'd been wearing a uniform, and it's on the tape, I said, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I said that on the tape. I probably shouldn't have done that, I said. And so afterwards, I took everything down. So I was willing to act in good faith and honor the fact that they're a private corporation and that I had done something that might, misrepresent what they believe is a private corporation. But they never even spoke to me once. They never even talked.
It was just that one meeting with that one guy and you're done. So
it's inhuman.
It's crazy.
This is inhuman, what the world that we're creating, that we're sitting back and watching happen in front of our eyes, and that it's even worse than that. We are participating in it. The pastors are participating in it by not condemning abortion. The pastors, the Christian priests of America, are participating in this by not condemning sodomy, by not helping the people of the West understand why Christianity has condemned sodomy and Judaism, by the way, 4,000 years. It's been condemned. And when it's condemned in law, it works. Now, does that mean we run around and chop their heads off and throw them off buildings and that kind of thing? No, that's not what that means at all. The debate should not be about whether or not sodomy and abortion are condemned. The debate should be about what the penalties in law ought to be for these acts. That's where the debate should be. We should not be debating whether or not these things are right or wrong. They're obviously wrong. We should be debating and deciding on what the penalties should be.
Well, I have to wonder how they found your video, because I know you have a following, but you're definitely not Tucker Carlson out there. So why was it such a threatening thing for him? And was it? I don't think it was. I think it was just
one anonymous complaint, Rob. Anonymous complaint. Anonymous. And it wasn't about package delivery. This is so wicked. And I feel for men who need the job more than I do. I need the job. I wanted the job, enjoyed the job. I need the job, but I do have the ministry. I'm, we're scraping along, but I fear for the men who do these jobs are, a lot of them, not in a position where they can afford to lose them in this way. Yeah. But this is how the left is muzzling us. Another way is by threatening our jobs.
Well, and that's kind of where we're at. We're living in a world of fear where we're afraid of our employers, we're afraid of the government, we're afraid of our pastors. I've been to the principal's office more times than I can count for things that I've published and written and spoken. So,
God bless you.
But it absolutely is.
Thank you for being on Peter LaBarbera's side, Americans for Truth About Homosexuality. He's one of my best friends. And he's great.
Yeah, that was another odyssey that we went on a few years ago. So.
Yeah.
Well, folks, we're out of time here. I would encourage you to go to michaelheath.org, Michael Heath, HEATH.org, and check out his resources there. His wife, Polly, has a site as well that links to it. And you can also hit that donate button and help support our friend Mike and his wife, Polly. And by the way, they are the parents of our renowned producer, Jared, who runs the show for us every week. So thank you, Mike, for joining us. We could talk a lot longer. I didn't even get through 2 pages of my notes. So we'll have you back again. Thanks.
God bless you.
Bye.